If you've listened to hit beats recently, you'll likely be surprised at how simple most of them are. There's a reason why this is, and I'm going to show you how you can keep your beats simple without making them boring. A lot of producers get frustrated at this, but I'm going to show you 5 very important principles that will make your beats simple enough to be hit ready without them being boring or generic. First step is having simple yet catchy melodies. Remember, if you're setting this beat out to a rapper or a vocalist, they're going to record their own vocals, which is also a melody layer. So you don't want the melodies to be really crowded because there's not going to be any room for them. If you listen to melodies like Espresso, you'll often notice how simple they are yet how catchy they are. The first step to having a catchy melody is having a catchy chord progression, just like this one here. The chord progression is what has all the emotion for your song. If you want it to be catchy, it's really good to be familiar with the chord progressions that are popular in the genre you're producing in. If you have a look at this chord progression chart here, it's going to show you how you can follow it to get the kind of chord progression that's been proven to get stuck in people's heads. You need a teeny bit of music theory. Go and pick the scale you want to produce in, and what the Roman numerals mean is what note in the scale you're going to build the chord on. So in a C major scale, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, and this would be 4. If you go into view and scale highlighting, you can select the scale notes you want to show up in the background. For example, this one will do 1, 5, 3, and 2. And then you can choose whether to build a minor chord or a major chord around these. A minor chord has 2 gaps and then 3 gaps, whereas a major chord is 3 gaps and then 2 gaps. You'll hear the minor chord sounds a bit darker, and the major chord sounds a bit brighter. Another alternative is using a chord progression tool like the free one in FL Studio, where you can select your scale by right-clicking, going edit and selecting a scale, and then clicking generate to generate the chords. I recommend switching up the timing a little bit just to add a teeny bit of bounce and energy. Now you should have a catchy but not over the top melody. And to stop your melodies from clashing, it's good to have different melody layers on another octave. For example, this arpeggio here. You can then add some ear candy like this here. It basically just copies the chord progression, but you can do Alt-S, which opens up the strum tool, which is going to add this delay at the start to make it sound like it's played on a real piano. You can add some one-shots at the start of the chords just like these. The next step is basic but bouncy drums. It's easy to get carried away and add a really bouncy hi-hat sequence like this one here. I recommend choosing between having a bouncy hi-hat and having bouncy percussion, just like some open hi-hats here, or some percussion rolls. If you have an over-the-top hi-hat and an over-the-top percussion sequence, it's going to overcrowd the drums. I recommend sticking to just one or alternating between one and the other. I also recommend keeping a lot of the perc fills and rolls, as well as the hi-hat rolls, to the very end of a sequence, an 8-bar sequence, and that's going to lead into the next 8 bars. For example, this snare roll at the end here. For example, listen to the hi-hat roll in Free Smoke by Drake. Yeah. And listen to the kick roll in Drugs You Should Try It by Travis Scott. The next step to create simple yet catchy beats is the mixing. I recommend being conscious of where the vocals are and making sure to leave room for the vocals. Because if you send this beat out for placements and it's massively overcrowded, the vocalist is going to have no room on the track. One of the best ways to figure out whether you've done this is by dragging an acapella in and listening and seeing if the acapella fits.
Got a ghost brush and I pop shit. I'm a dope boy with that cop.
I think the main culprit here is his guitar, so I'm actually going to delete it for this section of the beat when there are all these melody layers.
Got a ghost brush and I pop shit. I'm a dope boy with that.
The fourth step is mastering, and this is really important. If you're going to put the track on streaming platforms, I recommend having a look at the recommended LUFs for each platform by using this guide here, and there's lots of mixing and mastering plugins that you can use. I often use Isotope Ozone 9, and you can set the LUFs here and export a different version of the track for different streaming platforms. If you're creating a beat to put on YouTube or post, I recommend having it hit as hard as possible by going and using a soft clipper, a maximizer, or a compressor to really have the master clipping. And if you're sending beats out for placements, I recommend also including the unmixed stems, which is going to allow the engineer to go and change whatever they like and also change the arrangement. The fifth very important step to creating simple yet catchy beats is the arrangement. You want to bring layers in and out to keep things fresh, add evolution to your track, keep people listening, and also not having things be overcrowded. I like having a lot of the melody layers come in at the start, but then bringing in some of the more background layers when the drums come in. As far as percussion goes, I tend to bring a lot of the percussion in later. That includes a backing hi-hat, more complicated hi-hat, perk rolls, perk fills, open hi-hats, and this adds more bounce to the track later on. I then recommend bringing in a lot of those warmer, bigger melody layers in during the hook, because this is when the melodies really play their part. And this is the catchy part where the melodies get stuck in people's heads. I hope you learned a lot from this and use this to make simple yet catchy beats. If you want some melodies and samples that are perfect for this, click the link in the description to get the Emotional Essence library with 10,000 royalty-free samples and MIDI for every emotion or genre of music, as well as free bonuses. It's currently 90% off, but it's going to get taken down pretty soon. So click the link in the description to get it. And if you want to learn how top producers make their beats and other priceless production strategies, click one of the recommended videos.